Um, what is an emotional scores? What are they?
Hmm.
And what is an emotive persona? And how are they being used now?
Wow. Okay, now we're in the core. So you all we've all heard of generative AI, right? So
Yep.
let's go back about 6 years ago. There was something called Bert and Elmo, and I won't go into all the details, but what happened? I was talking about training data, and the problem was small companies like ours just didn't have the ability to acquire enough training data to actually train a model. And a large language model was called a transformer because you could transform the very end of that model, the last couple layers, and teach it your domain, what you were trying to accomplish. And the rest was trained more semantically, like using Wikipedia data and teaching. Like I tell people, like Jack and Jill went up the hill, but it learns what Jack and Jill is, and the king and queen had a castle. Like it starts to learn male, female, and it's vector analysis, right? So the math starts to understand the relationships of words. Then I come back and using that knowledge it already has and say, okay, let me teach you emotional scores. And what I do, generative AI uses those same language models to generate new ideas and new images, and as we've all played with. But I use it for something called sequential classification, which what we're doing is looking for evidence of something in this case text. So if we have say a 300 word story, I want to know, is there evidence of sentiment? Is there evidence of joy? Is there evidence of anxiety? Is there evidence of activity level? All sorts of things that are more psychologically oriented. And so we played with the psychological case log work for 150 years and said, what do people measure? What kind of personality things do they measure? And not that I'm getting a personality of the person telling me a story, but I might start to get a personality of the community of a collection of stories. If I have 500 stories, I can start to say, well, gosh, these people are more joyous maybe, and they have a really high altruism in their storyline, and they also have a fair amount of anxiety, or I can start to play with this evidence of finding. And we use something called Likert, so it's very low, low, medium, high, very high. And so we train on a 5 label system. We have 56 or plus models that do each emotional score that we do. We built our data. We had labeled supervised data to train them on. And so that's what our emotional scores are. When we read these stories, we're not looking for words like profit or basic concepts, or somebody mentioning IBM or Jeep over here. We're looking for, hey, does this person feel loved or not? And we take that data and we start to play with the complexity of the interrelationships between all those emotions as they come together, because we take and build a map of that. And that starts to get into the idea of a persona. We hear people talk about digital twins, like how do we make a twin of somebody? Well, what we kind of do is take that content from a story and start to let you know the thematic work, or the variance and covariance, get really technical, like how data travels in that community, so that we can start finding kind of like sand in the bottom of a river, right? Like you got some high points and low points, and like start to identify that. And then we hand that off to the researchers. We use the AI to find all this complex stuff that humans are not great at, but we let humans validate that, right? And prove that out, and then decide what really matters to our customer.